Please start.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of VCTV, the Venture Capital TV from La Token. I'm your host and moderator of the session today, myself, Sunny Mohanty. I'm the regional director of La Token, and I'm based here in Singapore. So today, again, we have another different topic on about investments into gaming, entertainment, and eSports, because these are the areas which has accelerated humongously because of the situation that we are currently in. And again, we have two great speakers who are also investors into the space to speak about the space. I mean, obviously the topic. So I would like to start with a short introduction about each of the speakers. The first speaker is Rajiv Suri, who is actually joined us for the first time. So I would like to ask Rajiv to start his short introduction, and then we can move to Sean, who has been here before. Hi, Rajiv. How are you?
Super pleasure to catch up with you, Sonny. I think we are in different parts of the world. It's always wonderful to have a global audience. I think gaming as an industry is huge. 2.5 billion people spending almost $150 billion, larger than the entire media and the movie industry combined, which I think is fantastic, right? So, I'm a managing partner in a fund. It's an early stage fund based out of India. We've got about $100 million invested into companies at the moment, about 57, 58 companies. Very recently, I invested in a gaming company. It's in the real money gaming space. These guys, from the time I invested about 6-7 months ago to now, they've grown about 50, 60x, right? So, that's a kind of phenomenal pace that we are seeing in terms of growth. They've actually gone ahead to raise a Series A from a couple of large global funds as well. Well on track to maybe double or triple by the end of this year. That sort of brings me to the centerpiece of why gaming is such a cool, thing, particularly because of the lockdown. I think the single biggest thing that has happened during this lockdown is essentially that we've seen a compression in the digital journeys of consumers. So simply put, the consumer is always going digital. We always knew that from the advent of the taxi apps and so on and so forth. But maybe what we can say is in the last 3 months, what a 4-year journey would have taken, what we would have been at maybe 20-25 times by 2025 is now compressed by the end of 2020. I think that's the acceleration in the journey that's happened. And that's going to have profound implications for how we live, behave in the future. And I think the age of digital, the age of gaming is here to stay with us. I think that's the exciting part about the game today. Cheers.
Okay, thank you, Rajiv, and welcome to VCTV. We have a lot to hear from you because we were just having a discussion offline. You've got a lot of perspectives coming from Indian market. Okay, so next speaker is Sean Burrows. I was just in a very cool mood and he's probably shaking some legs over there. Hi, Sean, welcome back.
I'm so happy to be here. Like I always say when I come on, I'm just so impressed with the dedication and consistency you guys are putting towards just creating this content around the investment and blockchain space. So again, I'm happy to be here. My name is Sean Burrows. I'm the co-founder of Ingressive for Good. Ingressive for Good wants to train 1 million African youth. We want to deploy $1 million in funding, and we want to create 5,000 jobs. I'm also the COO and support with the Ingressive conglomerate, which includes the VC, Ingressive Capital. So what Ingressive Capital does basically is they invest $200,000 to $400,000 early stage in tech-enabled startups connected to traditional African business sectors. Again, in many ways, although by law, these two companies are definitely separate, but it was the information that we were gathering, the data that we were collecting from the market, understanding what entrepreneurs are going through, what SMEs and startups are going through, that led us to the fact that we need to actually focus on creating technical talent that's going to allow Africa to participate in the fourth industrial revolution and play a bigger part in the topic of today, which is the gaming industry and entertainment. We're doing where Nigeria is concerned, we're doing an amazing job in the entertainment industry. We are exporting our products all over the world, increasingly so. But outside of the music industry, when you start looking at technology and entertainment, we are by and large consumers and not necessarily seen as creators in the space. So I'll leave that there so we can kind of jump into the conversation. And before we do, I also want to let everybody know, I also run my own private operations consulting firm called Burroughs Enterprises. And the goal is to build an economic bridge between Africa and its diaspora. So again, happy to be here. Good to speak with you again, Sunny.
Excellent, excellent. Good to know, like somebody, you were an American citizen, right?
Yes.
Yes, and you moved back to Africa just to build the community. Well, okay. Could you please enlighten us then? Sorry.
Everybody always assumes for some weird reason that I moved back, right? So when I moved here, I moved to the continent in 2014. I knew one person, which was a buddy of mine from university. So technically I didn't move back, I moved for the first time. And it was basically because I recognized so many different opportunities within the continent. And I wanted to position myself and build communities around us tapping in to the resources here instead of a lot of these resources being pumped out and then we have to buy those resources that came originally from here. So I'm definitely passionate and connected to creating finished products, increasing our participation in industries much like the gaming industry. We have a strong voice if given the opportunity to speak.
Okay, awesome. Good to know that. Sean, thank you so much for telling our audience about your journey. So because we just have two speakers like you and Rajiv, let's make it a little fun. It's because we're talking about entertainment and games at the end of the day. So we have to make it fun, engaging for our audience and the startups who are watching, because obviously they are looking for investors. So Rajiv, before I jump into any sort of questions, I would like to know your perspectives about the industry, because we're talking about three industries here. Like obviously they are loosely tied up or connected to each other, but give us an overview. Entertainment, gaming, and esports. The reason we are talking about these topics today because it has accelerated because of the pandemic, because everybody's online. So we would like to know from you, from an India perspective, how has it shaped up before the pandemic and during the pandemic? I mean, please enlighten us. Thank you.
All right, that's a very tall ask, but I'll definitely entertain you if I can, right? So I don't know about the enlightening part, but nevertheless, we can sort of talk about that. See, yeah, I think we are. If you think about the story, I think I've been a fan of Bombay. I lived in multiple cities, but I'm a fan of Bombay, and I live here now.
Right.
And I've traveled in the public trains of Bombay, which is an interesting experience by itself. Not for the faint-hearted, but definitely something that you would sort of explain. Let me sort of tell you about an experience I had a very long time ago. I was on the train, sitting, minding my own business, trying to figure out what was happening, which is basically being curious about everybody else that was coming in. And then there was this chap that sort of passed me by and said, time pass, 10 rupees, time pass, 10 rupees, right? So time pass, 10 rupees,
Okay.
right? So what is time pass? I mean, it's passing your time pass, right? So
Right.
I asked him, what is this time pass in 10 rupees? And he basically proffered, a small packet of peanuts, right? So you actually get peanuts, and they are not called peanuts there. Basically there's obviously multiple flavors of peanuts, but it's called time pass, right?
Okay.
And I think the important insight that came for me, and that was like an aha moment for me, was basically as humanity, this passing time or being entertained or being, sort of keeping oneself occupied, I think is a very, very huge occupational hazard for us as a species. We are perhaps the most privileged species in the planet for us to be able to have that kind of time to pass and do that. Right. And, the other thing that comes out of this is we spend huge amounts of effort and huge amounts of time in passing time, right? So that's something that we do, right? And I think entertainment sits squat bang in the middle of this, right? So if you think about the overall space that we are talking about, it's entertainment, right? So people say, I want to watch news because I want to be learned or know more. People say, I want to watch this, I want to watch documentaries. Make no mistake, every one of these is about making sure that I get entertainment and I don't get bored. That's really what it is about. It's not about learning more and all that stuff. The primal, occupation for humanity is to sort of get themselves more occupied and enjoy themselves, as it were. So I think that's the broad space that we are talking about. there are lots of things you can do in that space. Watching movies is a classic case in point. You've got huge mega Hollywood blockbusters. Bollywood obviously is a big story by its own definition in India, and that's a massive market. Think about Marvel movies. A single movie made by a Disney or a Marvel universe can actually go across and create billions of dollars of valuation. So that already exists. But the strange thing is that the gaming industry is actually bigger than the entire movie industry of the world and the entire music industry of the world. So think music, Taylor Swift and all the ecosystem combined, and the
Yeah.
movie industry, both of them put together, smaller than the gaming industry. I mean, that sounds a little strange because people that are used to gaming, but they're not used to the fact that this is such a huge industry, right? The question is, why is gaming so powerful, right? And the answer to that comes from the fact that gaming actually has something that the rest of the entertainment world doesn't have. Gaming is actually active, right? So when I'm watching a movie, I'm actually a passive recipient of information that's coming towards me, right? I'm not really participating in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sort of thinking about what's going to happen next. Where is the twist going? Who's going to murder this, person, or who has already murdered it, or what's going to happen? Is the hero going to meet the heroine? So on and so forth are going on in my mind, but I'm
Yeah.
still a passive recipient, right?
True.
That's the way it works. But in
Yeah.
gaming, I'm actually actively playing. I'm
Yeah.
participating, I'm engaging, I'm doing things, etc., etc. So that makes it a lot more. That's a whole new level of engaged, right? That's a whole
Right.
new level of time pass. If I were to use the same term that I learned so long ago in one of the suburban trains of Bombay, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's the bottom line behind this entire story. Essentially, the viewpoint is that gaming is so much more powerful because
Yeah.
it's there, right? Now that's setting the context of why it's so sexy and why it's so super cool. Let's talk
Yeah.
a little bit about history, right? So I
Yeah.
think in terms of history, I think gaming actually started as an industry maybe 20, 25 years ago. It's as young as that, right? If you really think about it, right?
Yeah.
And for a while, and the first few years of that gaming industry, gaming actually meant hardware. It actually meant console, right? And the
Mm.
center of the world was actually not America, not Europe. It was actually Japan, right? So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had the players like Nintendo, Sony, Atari. These are you remember those boxes that used to be there?
Yeah.
That was
I
where
used to
it
have those.
started, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
The big
the entire gaming ecosystem was about who had the better console, who had the better box. In other words, that was really what determined, what the gaming ecosystem was.
Yeah.
And then came the next phase. The next phase was the age of the publishers, right? So it became a little bit more US and UK centric, perhaps. And Sonny, you might remember some of those things. Maybe you were
Yeah.
very young for that, but nevertheless, there were some of these game developers that were really centric to this, right? So the best game studios became the rock stars of that age, right? That was the second transformation in gaming. And
Yeah.
these were guys like, Electronic Arts, Take Two, Ubisoft, Activision, Blizzard, etc., etc. I'm sure these are still names that are still around, but these are the
Yeah.
guys. So essentially, game design, game development, those became the cool things, right? Grand
Yeah.
Theft Auto, Halo, etc. So these were the big, stories of that
Yeah.
age, as it were, right? And even until now, this entire game was still limited to the first world markets because you still needed to have this
Mm.
really specialized console, which cost you at least $500, $600. And you had to
Mm.
have this large screen TV and you had this immersive experience, right? So all
Yeah.
these things were not available across the world. They were the privilege of the rich world, perhaps, and only a small fragment of the rich world that was really into it. So that was still a preserve of this. Now comes along digital. Now you got this entire internet revolution that sort of takes over. And with digital gaming, technology innovation mushrooming,
Yeah.
that actually starts to shift the center of gravity from Europe and America and Japan
Mm.
towards Korea and China. That's the
Mm.
third phase of the gaming ecosystem, as it were. And what happened there was basically China is a massive market, but it's very similar to very many emerging markets in the sense that the consumer will not pay you for anything, right? So that's true of most of these markets. Trying to make money in India, that's the first question I ask entrepreneurs, right? How do you hope to make money, right? If the answer is okay, yeah, maybe, then that you have to continue to support the startup. We still might end
Right.
up investing in them, but there are other logical reasons for us to do that, right? So it's a
Mhm.
lot more difficult to make money in markets that are not really that obvious, right? So that's
Right.
where these new innovative models come in. So the game is distributed for free, so you get it on the Play Store or whatever you do. But then you
Mm.
have to spend if you want to spend more time on it, right? Or in the game, if you want a couple of extra lives, then you buy diamonds or you buy things. So it's basically the in-app, in-game advertising or
Yeah.
in-game spending actually is the main way that these guys make the money, right?
Right.
So that's where the innovation really kicks off because you now have a digital world. the power of the digital world also was that in the console world, you had this physical limitation, right? You had to have this infinitely powerful device that was sitting in front of a large screen TV, and only those people could be a part of the gaming ecosystem. But now, once the mobile revolution happens, the internet revolution happens, you essentially got billions of people that could do it, right?
Yeah, totally.
That has meant basically that the usage exploded, right? So instead of having a few million people in each country, right, maybe a 5, 10, 15, 20 million, you are suddenly looking at a world of billion people, right? That's, I think, the second, that was, I think, the unlocking of the, world to the gaming ecosystem opened up. Casual happened, hyper casual happened. You got all these, Clash of Clans. You got PC games. You got Candy Crush Saga. You got a lot of these guys that are sort of happening, and that's where the storyline evolves towards, right? And today you now have the cusp of the next revolution, right? So now you've had the Japan model, you had the American model, the game developer model. You now have the Chinese model that has also developed. What is next? You got 400 million people in India that has sort of exploded into the internet in the last couple of years. I was the CMO of Geo, and I launched that network that made pretty much the largest network in the world right now, which does the digital network. And now you got as Sean would definitely talk about, another billion people sitting in Africa that are going to join this ecosystem again, right? So you got a lot of new people that are joining it, and there is a new centricity to this world that is actually taking things by storm. So the excitement going forward in the future is a lot more than there was in the past, and it ain't going to be, it's going to get much better than where it is right now. So that would be the brief history of the ecosystem, as it were.
Excellent. Love those insights, Rajiv, and the energy. Thank you so much.
I'm just reciprocating what I'm seeing.
Thank you. I'm loving this panel. Sean, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. So if we're looking at the gaming industry from Africa, again, it's too often a sad story where we'd like to be speaking about the success that has come from here. But again, we are usually restricted to speaking about the opportunity. Because what you find within the African continent, as usual, a lot of SMEs, it's not just the gaming and the gaming industry, so to speak, but a lot of entrepreneurs and SMEs and companies, startups and whatnot, they have to build their own infrastructure. They have to oftentimes build backwards and forwards, basically build pathways to the customer and build pathways to get them closer to production, just to kind of create a sustainable business model. So oftentimes, especially when you're looking at a gaming industry, which leans upon so many different elements that you need to have the environment, to have a strong, robust gaming community or entertainment community, these are the opportunities that exist within the African continent. But now the upside to it is that when you start tackling these infrastructural problems and different things like that in different degrees, you kind of own the space. The one thing I love about the continent here, which draws me here and what has kept me here, is that you have the opportunity to become the next Rockefeller or the next Carnegie. And there are stories of these people where basically they're able to go face to face with American presidents and dictate terms because you cannot move past them. If you want to use this thing that is creating money, that is creating opportunity, that's creating access, they are the gatekeepers. So again, where the African continent is concerned, we have an opportunity to become gatekeepers when it comes to gaming in the space. And now when I say gatekeepers, let's talk about what are we gatekeeping? What is behind the gate, right? I'm sure that's the next logical question. So if I'm touching on like a few different statistics, you have several things that really jump out to me that really paint the picture of what this opportunity looks like. You have Africa, which has the world's highest youth population at 200 million people currently, and it's growing exponentially every single year. And if you want to look at the gaming industry, who's playing the games? I guess you do have, again, somebody told me, this was a funny joke a long time ago, but somebody told me that if you want to know who's really playing these Call of Duty games and different things like that, it's these middle-aged husbands who can't go outside anymore. So they're sitting at,
I missed that. Sorry, what's that?
These are the middle-aged husbands who are at home and basically, they can't run the streets anymore. They can't do all of this crazy stuff. They have a family, they have responsibilities. So amazing use of their time basically is to sit home and battle and beat and destroy these 12-year-olds on these fighting games, on these shooting games, all these different things that you have in that space.
Nice.
But again, those, even if we're looking at now, these 200 million youth today are going to grow and become those middle-aged married men who will be addicted to gaming. So there's just, again, there's so much opportunity there. If you look at just the industry itself, I'm focusing on gaming because it's more finite. I can give you like more specific details. When we start jumping into entertainment generally, there are so many different elements that come into play. So I'll jump into that a little bit, but I want to focus more so on the gaming aspect. So video game players in Africa grew from 23 million to 500 million between 2014 and 2018. So again, there's this story of exponential growth, and that's 2018. So if you start looking at it, if you look at between 2014 and 2015, you're seeing like a 23 to 50 million, and you know, in the next year it grows. But like, again, once you start getting towards the tail end, 2017, 2018, you're seeing like 200 million people come online, basically, and start playing games. So now what did 2019 look like? And again, if you look at the industry and how COVID has impacted it, I'm pretty sure it's not something that's limited game playing in any meanings. If anything, it's quite the opposite. I was an avid, or I said was, I'll say was. Okay, I am. Right now, I am. The game is probably still on in the other room, but I am an avid Call of Duty player, right? I love Call of Duty. And I just remember at certain points where the server was crashing because now everybody is online. And then Call of Duty made this smart decision to basically launch this huge, large, global map war thing that was basically available for free. So like millions and millions and millions of people came on. And again, you have to look at it like, if you want to know how this is impacting Africa, you have to look at the entire world. There are Netflix that said they had to scale back their broadband. YouTube, well, they had to scale back the quality of video and different things like that, because even in developed countries, they could not handle the bandwidth of all of these people trying to jump on now. Everybody's doing a webinar, everybody's doing an online meeting. And of course, we were already playing online games. So it's so much stress. Now, when you take that here, you step into a whole different set of problems. Again, solvable problems, and whoever solves these problems, in my opinion, would be insanely rich. But again, from our part, the reason why we're not necessarily jumping into it, because it doesn't always fit our investment model. So we make $200,000 to $400,000 investments. This industry needs $200 to $400 million investments. But again, the upside is you're looking at the potential of the gaming space as a whole, and then you're looking at the potential that's going on here within the continent. And please give me a finger or send me a smoke signal or something when I start going too far.
Okay, I'll do that for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yes. Another one, Africa's smartphone adoption rate has doubled in 2 years. And now, where is most of the gaming happening? Like 50% of the gaming space now is basically on mobile phones. Again, I avoided Candy Crush because I felt like I was a super macho guy and I don't even eat candy, you know, but at some point I played, I got addicted. And what people found out was, like, even if you're looking at the gaming industry,
sorry.
He's making fun of me. He's like, play Candy Crush. Amateur. But they started making like spin-off games. So you have all of these different types of games. Like I remember I was playing Clash of Clans. I play Empires and Puzzles and all these different things where now when I'm not saying in meetings, but maybe in between meetings where, you know, I'm just waiting or traveling different places. You know, you can, a 15-minute trip in Lagos, Nigeria can take 3 hours. So what am I doing? I'm playing my video games on my phone. Everybody around the country is engaging in these type of things, and you're seeing exponential growth and people adopting not only smartphones, but the games and the inherent communities and different things that come inside of it. Another one you have is that mobile internet subscribers in Africa are growing 26% year over year. If you start looking at these 200 millions and these billion number figures, and you start looking at 26% of those people are now jumping in or entering into the internet, because that was one of the major challenges, was the infrastructure, the internet infrastructure. How are you going to have a robust gaming industry if people cannot access stable internet? Well, more and more and more people are at such an alarming rate, because now these African countries themselves are now starting to make a business case. Not even starting, there's an understood business case, but now they're willing, after seeing what's going on in different spaces, now they're actually willing to invest themselves. They're not looking at, hey, Google, or hey, Facebook, or hey, Microsoft, if you want to access our people, you need to come here and drop down hundreds of millions of dollars or millions of dollars to help us build out this infrastructure to create your future customers. Now you see more African governments and different programs, and even some of the local companies, your MTNs, main ones, all of these different companies, these internet subscriber type companies, are now investing and again, increasing the capacity of people to participate. Just in Nigeria, data consumption grew by 8,000% between 2013 and 2018. Wow. 18,000%. And if you already know this, if you're wondering what the economic value is to this, just keep in mind that the African continent has the highest cost of purchasing data. I think actually there's an amazing Indian success story due to the competition and different things going there. They were actually able to drive down the cost of data to be one of the lowest in the entire world. We need to, and that's a whole other conversation, but if we're going to touch on one of the challenges, I have a whole section on challenges, but just to touch on this, one of the challenges is when you go into these African countries, there are maybe 2 or 3 major internet or mobile phone service providers, and they basically hold a chokehold on the whole industry, and they're able to kind of charge how they see fit. In India, it was the competition. It was one visionary that said, I'm going to collapse, I'm going to rip the bottom out of this market and then force you guys to come and meet me on my place. So we need a little bit of that. Well, that's my last one. I don't want to go too far. I'm pretty sure you have another question, but like, these are some of the statistics that are proving that there are major opportunities here for people who want to engage in the African continent. It's going to cost you once. Yeah, anyway, let me relate.
You touched up on very, very valid points. One is the data costs are humongous. I would like to ask Rajiv 2 things, because he was smiling when you said about, I forgot. No, he was smiling. I would like to know, why was he smiling first? And second is, how, you said the cost, obviously there's a monopoly, I guess, in Africa as compared to India, but I really want to know Rajiv's perspective when it comes to ISPs. Rajiv, I mean, would you like to tell us why you were smiling first and second?
I'm in very pleasant company, so presumably the smile is coming from there as well. But what really cracked me up was Sean turning around and saying, I don't even like candy. I mean, Candy Crush Saga is about matching colors, right? You know, so interesting, right? So just a thought there, right? So, you know, I was a part of Geo, which is the operator that Sean is referring to. I was a CMO of Geo when you know, we launched in India, right? So the thing is basically that you need to have a viewpoint of volume over value, right? So you think about the first world ecosystems, right? And I think there is another example, a perfect example from the gaming world that I would like to talk about. See, for a very long time, you know, people like Sean and I have played Call of Duty on consoles, right? So I have my Xbox 360. I would buy Call of Duty 1, 2, 3, spend whatever, $60, $70 in it, you know, put it up there, play night outs, all that stuff, you know, over a month, just exhausted, and then go on to the next title. That's the way it works. Maybe a few million people was the entire ecosystem, right? And in 2019, after Blizzard Activision acquired King, they got this viewpoint of saying, let's go mobile now, right? So the 2019 was when they launched Call of Duty on the mobile, right? You know, the first 3 months there, the number of downloads they had on Call of Duty, 150 million. Wow. Right now, post-COVID, they are sitting at almost 270. I think the latest number is something like 260 or 270 million people that are playing it, and it's not a small download, right? You know, if you think about Call of Duty, right, Sonny, it is actually a fairly large file. It's almost 1 GB that you have to download onto your phone, right? And, you know, sort of try and play it, right? It's a huge file. It's not a small file, right? it amazes me the kind of response that they got on that, right? And that sort of points to you what the mobile ecosystem actually allows you to do, right? Now, for this to happen, obviously, you need to have a fairly powerful market ecosystem that works there. But I think the single biggest difference, I think, which India got right, and this is not just Mukesh Ambani doing this with Jio for the data network, that happened just recently. This actually started to happen in 2000 with all the guys, Reliance, Airtel, and Idea, and Vodafone was at that point in time called Hutch, and then Vodafone came over and bought it. All of these guys started off with 2 or 3 different premises. First was basically the capex will be leased, not owned, right? So basically that made the entire business model variable. Second was you're not really trying to build a model for 5 million or 10 million people, which is what you tend to think about when you think about first world, right? So I was in UK. I still remember I was a CMO of Infosys, and somebody from Northern Ireland invited me to say, why don't you set up a center in Northern Ireland, right? You remember that, right? So I asked him, so we went through the process, and I asked him, so how many graduates do you produce, right, in a year? So that guy said some 600 or 700 graduates, right? I couldn't open my mouth after that for 10 seconds because the critical mass of a center, software development center for an Infosys is 10,000 people, right? If you're going to produce 500 graduates per annum, it's going to take me like 100 years for me to fill up that center, right? So that sort of gives you a little bit of a sense of a perspective of how you need to think about these emerging markets, right? When you've got huge volumes of people, your cost per unit actually can be very low, but you'll still end up making tons of money very simply because there's so much of consumption and so much of usage. And that's precisely the fundamental mother lode that we hit upon in India across a range of businesses, right? So whether you think about mobile, which started in 2000, we had 5 million users in 2000, and today we have 1.3 billion users, right? It's as big as that, right? So India is a 1.3 billion country, so we've got 1.3 billion active SIMs in the country, right? And the market is the second largest market in the world for data, the second largest market in the world for smartphones and so on. So the statistics around that. I'm not really going to talk about that. But that, I think, is an important element of this game, right? Now, once the mobility network comes into play, then the fixed line network starts to happen, right? That's, I think, where there's a little bit more of a challenge, I think, as far as Africa is concerned. I've been to Africa a few times. South Africa a couple of times, maybe Nigeria once, and so on and so forth. The challenge there is basically you don't have contiguous countries, and basically the borders are a little difficult to sort of penetrate, and different countries are at different stages of evolution, because of which there might be a little bit of a challenge in terms of laying the fiber across the country. So basically the backbone of this entire network is about the fiber optic connections that have to stretch across the board, and that may or may not be existing all across Africa. I know that Kenya has got a brilliant network, South Africa has a brilliant network, Nigeria has got a brilliant network. Some of the countries have got really good networks, but I'm not sure whether all the countries have it. So I think that perhaps is one thing to think about. But broadly, it comes down to this. You need to think about large mass of people where you give very low prices, but the overall multiplication, anything multiplied by 1.3 billion is going to be a huge number, right? It's as simple as that, right? So that's basically the model that worked in a nation like India.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Good to know about those, you laid on the fiber optics bit, which makes it different from India, right? So, okay. So now we are like all sort of warmed up with the overview of this industry, starting from fixed line to mobile and everything else. Now let's move into investments. I like to ask Sean, what are the recent investments that you made in last 3-6 months? Either gaming, entertainment, so, and why did you made that investment, or what were you thinking when actually you decided to put the money in?
So some of the ones that we were looking at, it's really weird. It's not gaming from the way the first world would be interested in gaming. We took it from approach of what was popular here. So one of the first gaming companies we invested in was a company called TQ Trivia. It was a company that was backed by this huge Nigerian music artist. I actually forgot to tell you about this earlier. It came to me. I was like, oh, wait, we do. So there's TQ Trivia. And then can I say the next one? Yes. So then we're also looking at a company called Carry First, and this is basically in Nigeria. And these are basically trivia questions. They build a community contest, prizes, and different things, basically around local trivia, news, and different things like that, cultural cultural things. Like, for example, like you should have seen the questions and different things that were coming out with the whole Will and Jada Smith entanglement. Entanglement, not my favorite word for 2020. But yeah, there's just like that type of, that's where we're kind of playing at from the investment perspective. But I can't go too far here without bringing in what the foundation is actually doing in this space as well. So it's like where the foundation is looking at is we're looking at the long-term play, understanding what the market potential is for the gaming industry, especially within the Nigerian market. We use the Nigerian market, and we usually start here first because Nigeria in many ways is the influencer for the rest of the continent. So it's also the best representation of what you're going to get, what you're going to see in mass populations of Africans that have built their own government, community, society, or whatever, outside of Africans left to their own devices is the best way to say it. If you look at, let's say the best example is South Africa. When you look at a lot of statistics that people place in, or that they use or that they quote, oftentimes they separate South Africa out of those numbers because it skews the numbers too much. But even with that being said, when it comes to the entertainment space, Nigeria rules all. Like the artists and the different things, that, especially in the music space, there's a lot of activities here. What we actually did was we did the Tech Meets Entertainment Summit in 2018. And then in 2019, we had to cancel it. But the 2019 actually was the one that was supposed to be focused on gaming. The general idea is that, again, especially with Nigeria being the influencer, you have to look at the industry. So an artist in America is not going to make anywhere close to an artist in Nigeria is not going to make anywhere close to the amount of money somebody in the US would make, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Obviously. So a lot of your artists here, a lot of them, they may be popular, selling, doing all these different things, doing a lot of concerts, but a lot of the money that they make is actually coming from sponsorship. So what we're looking at is basically, again, we created this event basically to say that, like, look, you have 15 minutes, right? Everybody has their 15 minutes of fame. You may have probably more, but when you're in this industry, like, what are you going to do with all these people following you? What are you going to do as an influencer for an entire continent? How are you going to leverage that? Because again, you know, at best, a musical artist has like 5 years of being at the top if they make it to that point. And again, once you're not at the top, that sponsorship money dries up instantly. So now we came and we put these entertainers in a room with amazing tech talent, and then we put them in the room with investors, and we had these investors teach them about investment, and then we had the tech people kind of teach them or give them insight into ways that they can bring in different type of advancements and different things in the entertainment space. So again, we had people pitching ideas where, like, they were looking at how to solve the anti-piracy or the musical piracy thing. A lot of different suggestions there. One of the companies that we were looking at from the investment perspective was Booked by Us. Booked by Us was this company that made a platform and a user interface for people who wanted to book Nigerian and African artists. They kind of made the whole how much you pay, all those different things very transparent. It became such a hit that at the point where we were like, hey, let's have a talk, they were like, we don't really need to have a talk with anybody. Thank you, but no thanks. So it was kind of that. So that's the kind of the opportunity that exists here. So again, to take it back to what I said before, the foundation is actually focused on actually building or getting us to the capacity or building the capacity to get to the point where we can internally start creating games here. So we're looking at companies like Pixel Academy, again, in Nigeria. So they're a company that's basically focused on educating, training, and actually having people within their community create MVPs for games and different things like that. They're really connected to different spaces. They're even having people like Michael Bay. I don't know if anybody likes action movies, but the director behind the Transformers and whatnot.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. So like he's actually coming on to speak to the people in the community and kind of like, ginger them up to get them excited about kind of participating in it, because it's a long journey when when you're trying to attain a skill set that gets you to be able to produce at the global level. Another one that we were looking at is Letty Arts in Ghana. And what you'll find is a lot of these companies that want to transition into a gaming company technically start out with comic books. So we started scouring who's making comic books and those different things, because they have the capacity to create characters and storylines and different things like that. So Letty Arts is a company in Ghana where, again, started out with creating African superheroes and building this whole environment around it, where the next transition that they had was into gaming. So that guy is actually a consultant all over the world. The one running that one, he kind of goes and gives people insight in how to work within this environment, how to increase sales and different things like that. So those are like an example of the type of companies that.
Yeah. Hi. Okay, Sean, you there? Rajiv, can you hear me, or is it me who was lost?
You're clear. You're crystal clear.
Yeah, I'm clear. So it's Sean. Probably last time also, I think he had a unstable connection. I think if he doesn't get back on time, Rajiv, would you like to speak about your recent investments into either gaming or entertainment, and what were your decision? I mean, what were the factors that were taken into consideration before you made this investments?
So I think investment is a great piece, but let me talk a little bit more about how the industry is evolving and what are the kind of opportunities that exist in the industry, because that would be, I think, enormously beneficial for your audiences. Right? So
sure.
Most of us tend to think of gaming as being, these large game studios and then going to work there and developing games there, right? So there's a huge story around that in terms of what ends up happening. Good to have you back there, Sean.
Sean,
maybe
we lost you
really
for a
needed
bit.
you a little bit more there, right? But nevertheless, right? So can you hear us?
Sean, can you hear us?
He's not back yet.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm back. Apologies.
All right. So let's just continue with what I was saying. So I think most people tend to think of this as, okay, so I get into game development and I want to be a game developer. So that's one part of the career story, right? But I think there are lots of other careers. That's a lovely red bottle, huh? All red, coordinated you are. Looks like it.
It's like, Kingfisher. Just kidding.
Winnie the Pooh also has got a red, whatever sweatshirt on. So
oh yeah.
looks coordinated. Yeah. Anyway, so where was I? So I think the one part is the game developer part, but there are lots of other opportunities that are out there. So the big one that's emerging is eSports, right? So for instance, to be a player and a professional player, I think is a huge thing today, right? So I think the best example of that is the IPL league, right? India is a cricket crazy nation. There are 6 or 7 countries that are cricket crazy, and the IPL league, for the first time, do you know who the title sponsor is? A guy called Dream 11, right? Now, this is an irony by itself, because Dream 11 is actually a virtual fantasy league video game company.
Wow.
They do virtual fantasy league, and they have now ended up sponsoring the main IPL, right? That's, it can't get any more ironical than that, some virtual league is coming in and actually sponsoring the big one, right? So I think that's giving you a sense of what it is. So you can become a player. They are professional teams now. They make, they have a huge lifestyle. They travel around. They got massive fans. That ecosystem is, that's one ecosystem that's there. The second ecosystem that exists, and this is even larger than that, is basically the streaming ecosystem, right? So whether you got Twitch or whether you're on YouTube, I'm sure you've heard of this guy called Ninja, right? So he got a $30 million to go into Microsoft with a company called Mixer, which unfortunately shut down. But basically, the largest YouTube ones with the biggest, what do you call it, the subscriber base is actually people that play games and then do commentaries. There's this chap called PewDiePie, which has got, I think 70-80 million people or something. That he's one of the richest YouTubers out there, right? So what does he do? He buys a new DVD, like the console DVD. He chucks it in, and then he just gives live commentary as he's playing the game. He's not even a professional player, mind you, right? It's not like he's the best, but his commentary is something that millions of people want to watch, right? It's a little like, if you think about football, that's a traditional world that you have. The total number of people that played professionally will be in the thousands at the most, right? Across the world, right? That's really what it will be. But the number of people that watch it are in the billions. right?
That's true.
And the spectators make more money out of this game, right? Then people pour in more money into the game than the players or other people do. So I think that's the big thing to remember. And the interesting thing about the gaming ecosystem is you're not just a spectator alone, you're also a player and a spectator. I think that makes for a very interesting interconnection there. So that's the third ecosystem. So there's a lot of streaming and there's a lot of stuff that's happening at a spectator level that could be a big story there, right? The fourth area is basically tournaments and organization of tournaments, right? So he spoke about Call of Duty, and I think that Call of Duty has got multiple tournaments that are being played all across the world. You can actually become a local tournament organizer. You can create your own ecosystem. You can put that in place. You can get the sponsors. You can do all that good stuff. And bingo, you suddenly have a career. You can actually make a story out of it. So that's one more category that exists, right? Then on top of that, you got the stats, the nerds, and other things. And now we've got the technology piece as well. So there are a bunch of these companies that are coming in that are saying, I'm going to host this in a virtual environment, right? So let's say Call of Duty requires, really heavy graphics and other things, but I don't have the heavy graphics in the console that's available in front of me. So what do? I actually host it in the cloud and actually allow that to go on as a live stream, right? So you actually see it as a live stream, just like what we're doing right now. And there's a lot of those kinds of innovations and technology that are already happening. So there's a technology piece there, right? So if you think about all these different pieces that are coming together, there's an entire ecosystem that's being built around the gaming world that could potentially feed, fuel, build careers, make rock stars out of people for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So I think the golden age of gaming is just waiting to happen, I think, as we talk, right? So I think that's the piece that I think would
Rajiv,
wait. So the 90s with Nintendo was not the golden age?
Well, yeah, it was the golden age because you had to have gold to have the console, right? So
well said. Sean, I'm going to come to you. I just have a question for Rajiv. So if a startup is looking to move into these spaces, what is the initial capital they're going to be requiring? Because I can see it's more technology that comes into play more than anything else. Because live streaming on the cloud, and I'm just trying to understand what's the initial capital. Do you think? Obviously, so
Sonny,
there is
strangely enough, we live in the world of venture capital right now, right? So if you have a good idea and a great thought process and are able to execute on something powerfully, right? Money is not a constraint, right? So you will find your money. It's a little like if you're a smart person, right? Then you'll find you'll find your sources, you'll find your outcome, right? It's a little like that, right? So I think the most important thing to think about is what is it that I'm going to do that other people cannot do in the space that I'm thinking about, right? So if you're able to give a good answer to that, an answer that gets millions of people excited about it, an answer that keeps them coming back to you on a regular basis, and an answer that makes them give you money.
Right.
That essentially applies to any industry, right? If you're able to answer those three specific parts, right? A great, product that people love, something that people keep coming back to, and something that they'll pay you money for. If you're able to do these three things well, you're sorted, right? So it can be in any of these spaces. PewDiePie is brilliant at that because people love listening to him talk, right? So I think that's the way it works, right? So if you're able to do a great job of something, then I think, that sort of takes it on. And I think the numbers are, obviously the costs of doing business are increasing, but the cost of technology paradoxically are falling, right? So if you think about any of these emerging markets, so if you think about an Africa or most of these markets, any of these guys, whether it be Google, whether it be Microsoft, whether it be other folks out there, Amazon, they all give free services, almost free services to developers because they obviously want them to come on board and do stuff. So when you're in a sandbox environment, or when you join an accelerator, or when you are a part of one of these incubators, you get a lot of the infrastructure pretty much thrown in for free, right? The critical part is to try and figure out an idea that's going to be cool enough or sexy enough to make it to a big league, so you can get into one of these places. Then everything else is sort of taken care of. So that's the way I would sort of think, folks need to think about it, right? So find a co-founder, somebody that understands tech, go with an idea, everything else is sorted for you. That's the way I would sort of look at this.
Excellent. You made my question very simple after you explained the sandbox thing. It's ready, right? It's already a great idea.
Absolutely.
And you put the money. Thank you, Rajiv, for making it very simple for me. So, Sean, would you like to continue where you left us from? I hope you don't leave us again.
Sorry. Again, there are challenges, but we are managing. I think I touched on most of it. I think one of the interesting things that we were trying to do, again, to touch back on the Tech Meets Entertainment Summit, is that we were attempting to bring in companies that were already investing in the gaming space. The name escapes me now, but there was a UK gaming company that was coming to support. We were bringing in Akatsuki, the company that made the Akats, AKATSUKI. So if I said that wrong,
Is it
apologies.
Japanese?
Yes,
Is it
Japanese.
Japanese,
He's
yeah.
a manga comic, it's one of those famous folks in manga. This is Japanese animation, basically.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So they basically, they were the company behind the Dragon Ball Z video game, mobile game. So yeah, we had interest of with those types of people, but again, they a lot of them just felt like the market, it was too early for them to enter the market. So
Right.
we made some great connections, and people like I mentioned, Pixel Academy, they're having conversations and getting support and different things like that. But again, now we have to approach it from almost a social impact perspective before we start looking at it from an investment perspective, knowing that basically what you're going to end up doing once you build the infrastructure, you've created your own pipeline into the gaming industry within the continent. And again, if it's the same model that Microsoft, Google, Facebook, all of these different companies use, where basically once you come in, you introduce people to your multinational company and offer different support, you basically own their loyalty for years to come. The African market, they are very, very, very loyal. It can be very difficult for a brand to penetrate different markets here, but once they're in, they're in. So there's that one. But then again, the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on were a few of the challenges. So I think you mentioned so that the eSports arena is something that is creating a different type of celebrity. Again, once you combine gaming with the social media and all these different things that we have, you have people who are able to basically create their own communities around themselves. And again, the gaming industry is just so big that you have so many different people that you can pull from. So again, it may seem like a lot. I think he mentioned that this one guy has like 80,000 followers or something to that effect, or 80 million followers to that effect. But then again, when you compare that to the 2 or 3 billion people that are participating in the gaming industry, it's like, oh, there's still a lot more space, a lot more ground to cover. So one of the issues that we are experiencing here is that we don't typically have data centers that are located within the continent. So especially when you start coming towards like esports and competitions and different things like that, our ping rates are far too high. The whole process of playing the game competitively live is just not possible. We're not able to compete because of the lag. I know people talk about lag as an excuse for why they get, taken out of Call of Duty, but it's real. So you have people here, like we did an interview and we had an event that we did with this guy named Docs, who is the first professional African gamer. And again, in certain cases, he's not able to participate online because again, no matter what connection he has, it's just not fast enough for him to be able to participate without the lag. What was the other one? Yeah. Also, another thing that I wanted to touch on now is that we have to look at facing the future. So now with 5G coming into play, what you typically see, especially when you saw 4G, is that the type of games and different things being created became more robust. Bigger files became more common again, because then you look at the phone devices, the storage on phones kind of grew exponentially. Could you imagine having a phone right now that had like 500 megabyte speed and then 4 gigabyte storage space on your phone? It's a rock. You would use it to crack walnuts. You cannot use that thing as a phone in today's day and age. So again, now when you look at 5G coming, now you're going to see the next generation of games that's going to come now, because this whole thing is basically built around devices talking to each other. What does that mean for gaming industries? Even if you look outside of that, if you look at what like Google and Stadia is doing, is basically instead of having to buy a console, we're just going to run the whole gaming thing through the internet. So again, where does Africa fall within that conversation? So again, there are different pockets and places with opportunities. Again, if you just look at the city I'm in, there's 20 million people in one city. there's great opportunity. But again, it's just going to be who's going to be the first person. So what we're doing is basically creating that environment, creating the infrastructure, creating the network. So when people do want to finally come in, we're providing them plug and play access. And it's just because we know it needs to be done.
Yeah, Sean, really great insights. I've got a question on that. So you mentioned about the challenges that you have because of the land issues that you have in Africa. So being an investor, like if you have a startup that is obviously looking for funding in the space, be it gaming or entertainment, so how easy it is, or how convenient it is for the startup to, I mean, they have a fantastic idea. They have a good team. They have all the boxes ticked in terms of great startup and a great idea. But how convenient it is for them to raise funds, especially if they're targeting African market and maybe specifically Nigeria, because Nigeria is influencer for other countries in Africa. So how challenging or how easier it is for them?
My opinion from my perspective is, technically speaking, for the entrepreneur that actually has everything together, it's technically quite easy. Interestingly enough, again, the reason we created the foundation was because you had a lot of entrepreneurs with great ideas, but they weren't able to access affordable talent that would allow them to launch and scale. So that's kind of why we created that. But again, why we even put so much time, energy, and effort into building out the tech ecosystem was because we were the ones who, again, we brought Y Combinator, we brought 500 startups, we brought the Glickman Trust, the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund, like all of these huge companies, Plexo Capital, like these are all people who are invested in our fund and are interested in trying to engage the continent. And we came across a problem where we couldn't even find enough companies. The investors here are saying we cannot find enough good companies to invest in. We have the money, but we were looking for those companies. So Ingressive, we took it on our back to basically create that pipeline that would take somebody who's basically graduating from high school all the way to IPO. So like that's kind of the way that we're building it out, to just, again, create more opportunities, not just for us, but for everybody. So again, there are companies there. I won't say it's easy, because again, to say it's easy would be disrespectful, understanding the story and what these entrepreneurs and startups have to go through to get to the point where they check all the boxes. Things like there's not necessarily big data. So again, where do you find the statistics and information to say my company is? This is why classically African companies are typically undervalued when you compare them to their American or UK counterparts.
Okay. Yeah, great. Good to know about those. I mean, you have the money, but you don't have the startups. So
again, we're creating them, but like we have a particular niche. So again, it's not to say that they're not creating the companies, but it's tricky. It's very tricky because, again, keep in mind here that the people that they are pitching to oftentimes are foreign capital. That things that they would ask for. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, Hello? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. Okay.
Awesome. So a lot of these foreign companies basically do not necessarily understand the market here. So when they're looking at some of the figures and the ways that these companies are pitching themselves, it doesn't necessarily vibe with them because they don't have an understanding of the market. So there is a bit of a disconnect. There is a bit of miscommunication, but there are a litany of promising companies, and there is investment capital. It's just, again, this is what Ingressive is doing through the Ingressive Capital, Ingressive Advisory, and also Ingressive for Good is basically created to bridge that gap.
Excellent. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Sean. Rajiv, I've got a question for you. Are you looking to invest currently? Or are you building a pipeline that you're looking to invest in the next month or so, especially in this space?
We are actively investing. I told you, I just spoke about one of my most recent investments in the gaming space. Absolutely, yes. We are continually investing. Now is a great time because I think the opportunity that exists right now is to move into this new world that's post-COVID, where gaming is going to be that much bigger. And great ideas and great entrepreneurs are always good to acquire. So we are very much active in the space, and we are very much looking for opportunities to sort of jump in and invest. So
is it a growth stage startup, or is a seed
We are early
stage or?
stage. We are early stage, so that's what we invest in. So our investments are between $1.5 to $2 million, and per
Okay.
company, and that's what we do. So perfectly happy to
Okay,
engage
great.
in conversations.
Okay, so you are looking to invest. Okay, and you have
Absolutely.
recently invested. Absolutely. Thank you, Rajiv. Sean, so you have a meeting?
Yes, I do have a meeting at 2 p.m., but I can be 5 minutes late.
Oh my God, thank you so much for that. Sean, just want to know, are you looking, obviously you have this ecosystem, you've got the accelerator bit, you have the investment wing of the social impact, you have the tech bit sorted, everything in one platform. So are you looking to explore startups from Africa, within the continent, who are in the blockchain gaming space right now? Are you open to? I'm sure you are, but what's
Yes.
your
We are
pipeline
open
looks like?
to it, but I'll just be honest. I don't have a lot of understanding of the blockchain gaming space. We just do
Right.
not. But again, it's if we come across promising companies within the continent, or even if we come across people who could give us information on how people in the continent can also participate in that, we're definitely open for that. Just keep in mind, like, as much as we're passionate about investment, we're also passionate about just building out the ecosystem. So just as quickly as people can come to us for investment, they should also come to us for advice and partnership and support.
Of course, because you are one-stop shop, I guess. Like, you provide
Exactly.
end-to-end,
Exactly.
not only investments. Excellent. I think I can think through some of the startups I have within the LA Token community who are from Africa, and they are into gaming and entertainment. Probably I can just connect you with them, because
Definitely.
your profile is getting featured on our website as one of the investors, and they can always connect with you by clicking on the pitch button. And by the way, for the startups who are watching today, so you can just click on the pitch button and reach out to Sean for a 50% discount. We have just made it very simple. It's just peanuts for you. If you're looking to connect with Sean, who's going to do end-to-end for you, not only investments, but advisory as well, which is very important and critical to raise funds, you can always find him on our website. Thank you, Sean. Rajiv and Sean, before we go and offline and end this show, I have to say that I actually got a lot of information about it, because my strength is not gaming, in the sense about the knowledge base, but I learned a lot about the industry as a whole, as a holistic. So Rajiv, because it's the first time you attended the VCTV, what are your closing remarks about the startups who are looking to raise funds in this space, and generally the closing remarks for the VCTV show? Thank you.
I think the best way to look at it is to, I think the last 4 months have sort of put in a bit of a divide, right? So if you think about it, if you think about it from a perspective of trains, and I was just watching Snowpiercer, which is one of those things on Netflix, right? So basically think about this as a train where there are half the bogies that are physical world and there are half the bogies that are digital world.
Right.
What COVID has done is it split the train into two.
Yeah.
The one that is stuck to the digital and the technology world is just exploding. It's going faster, right? And what's happening there, you look at the $1 trillion companies that are listed in the US stock market, NASDAQ at all-time highs, all the companies that are digitally focused are now growing explosively. Geo is a great case in point. They acquired $20 billion in the middle of lockdown, that kind of a thing. So that's what is happening. And the traditional world, the ones that are not digital, are scrambling to get onto the digital ecosystem, right? So my viewpoint is basically this is the best opportunity to jump in with both your feet into something that's tech, that's disruption led by tech. If you have any kind of a thought or an idea, that just go in. The going is going to be wonderful. The opportunities are going to be phenomenal, because there are going to be lots of disruptions that are going to happen in the near future. So I think it's a golden age for startups and entrepreneurs, as it were.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those, last minute sharings with us. Startups, whoever is watching us today, please make sure, if you want to reach out to Rajiv Suri and pitch your idea to him, he's available. His profile is getting featured on our website. You can always find him there. And yes, click on the pitch. And we're just running a campaign giving away 50% discount, which is like probably $100 US, I guess, right now, if I can remember correctly. So you get access to both our investors today, And with Sean, you have end-to-end support, and I'm sure with Rajiv as well, you get end-to-end support because they bring a wealth of knowledge and experience in the field. So, Sean, you have any closing remarks, because you have short of time, because we're at nearly end of the show.
I think Rajiv kind of stole my thunder with the COVID connection that he made. So just to double down on that, okay, so I must say this: my condolences, my heart goes out to all of those who have been impacted by the COVID virus. There's been a lot of hardship people are experiencing. Supply chains are completely falling apart. But aside from that, this is an amazing time to launch a tech-enabled business. I know even for my consulting firm, I started basically pushing digital, basically tech integration and different things like that. And then I had to, at some point, just like say, all right, we have everybody that we can take care of now, slow down to a certain extent. So we're just clearing out the backlogs. But again, now is an amazing time. The entire world is on garage sale, fire sale, everything must go. So this is a time where you can reach out to people, build your digital online presence. I don't care if you're manufacturing, I don't care if you sell ping pong, but I don't care what it is that you do, you need to have an online presence now. It's not a best practice. Now it's a survival tactic. So that's one thing that I would say to both startups who are looking for investment and even those who are not. Look at how to effectively integrate technology, and also leave space in your model to incorporate some of the new technologies that are going to come when we're looking at 5G and different things like that. But with that being said, please continue to follow us, ingressive.org, ingressivecapital.com, and even mine, burroughsenterprises.com. We're here to support. There's a lot of opportunity. We're just waiting to show it to everybody. Thank you again for allowing us to come on and speak to your wonderful following.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Rajiv, for your time today. So you can watch our shows on www.platoken.com. You can actually follow the topics that we discuss Monday to Friday. We have VCTV running Monday to Friday. And please do let us know what is of interest to you besides gaming and entertainment and esports. And we can always have you on our panel, because our startup community is looking forward to you. Speak about the best practices in terms of investment, so that they can work towards that and secure some funding. That's the whole idea. Thank you so much. I would just say, good evening to you guys, and let's connect later and stay safe. And let's connect later. Thank you.